Welcome to the 10th Annual Adirondack Youth Climate Summit. Hello, I'm Jessica Jang from Northwood School in Lake Placid.
I'm Tucker from Saranac Lake High School.
We are in the logistics crew of the Adirondack Youth Climate Summit Planning Committee who helped plan this wonderful event along with other groups such as the social media crew, the art crew, and the grand finale crew. We're thrilled to see all of you here today and would also like to welcome those from far away watching our live stream.
Now that we've introduced ourselves, can I get a show of hands from those who are at their very first Youth Climate Summit? Awesome. I'm super excited for this year's summit, as this is my very first climate summit.
Now raise your hand if you've been to at least one climate summit before this one. Awesome! This is my third time attending this event, and I've been involved in the planning committee for 2 years now. I can't wait for the next 2 days because I've always learned new ways to take action with my environmental team every time I came here. For example, last year my school built a 3-bin composting system and started composting food waste from the school kitchen. Next, we'd also like to know where everyone came from. We have more than 30 teams in this room right now. Can I hear from people who drove for more than 2 hours to get to the Wild Center today? I hope you all enjoy the next 2 days and bring back all the knowledge you learned from this summit to your own communities. Now that we know each other a little better, let's start with who made this event possible. Let me proudly introduce one of the founders of this amazing program at the Wild Center, our grand leader, Jen Kretzer.
I'm going to stand right here. Thanks, Tucker. Thanks, Jess. Hey, everybody. Hi. I'm so proud to have all of you here today for our 10th Annual Youth Climate Summit. We have been doing this summit now, as I said, for 10 years, and it's amazing to me to see a lot of familiar faces and a lot of unfamiliar faces in the room. But I do want to give a couple shout outs to those of you that have been here. Let's say, are there any 5-year folks in the room? Do we have some 5-year, couple 5 years? What about 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? What about the 10-year? 10-year people, stand up. Stand up. Where are you? My gosh, that is so awesome. Thank you for sticking with us for all this time, because climate change is like a long-term thing, so we really got to I need all of you to be around for the next 10 years to help make this go. So you all know that, climate change, you hear in the news, you're like, oh my God, it's depressing, it's gloomy doomy, like there's always something happening and it doesn't feel great. But here at the Youth Climate Summit, and as you'll learn, other summits that we're getting started around the globe, that feeling, I feel like, just kind of slips away. And there's a feeling of being solutions focused, future thinking about the intersectionality of climate change with all sorts of other social issues, equity, poverty, hunger, immigration. There's so much that climate change impacts and affects. But this team, and you guys, I think of you as like the whole Youth Summit team, you guys have the ability and the minds and the will to make a change. And so I am so excited for the next 2 days because it's going to be totally awesome. So as I said, we've been here for the last 10 years and we've accomplished a lot. And I want to share with you a short video just highlighting exactly what we've done. Okay, this is Erin. She's helping because I usually break this. And so we're glad that she's here. Even after 10 years, I still Jen, don't touch the screen.
Last November, the Wild Center held a conference where I was one of 4 students from Lake Placid to attend, and The conference was really amazing. It sparked ideas in all the youth who attended, and we went back to Lake Placid and started a whole bunch of projects.
Because I guess I just never really realized that there were so many concerned and excited people just within the Adirondacks. And I just want to say that I'm so happy that everyone's here.
Too often we let our ideas get squashed down by people older than us, and not even intentionally. We don't have the kind of confidence within ourselves to know my opinion is valuable and people want to listen to me. So you should care because your opinion is valuable and people want to listen to you.
Going to the climate change is a really great experience to not only learn but also kind of really be engaged with it in ways that you can take back rather than just gaining the knowledge.
If I can help the environment, I feel like I've made a difference in the world and that generations to come can actually enjoy what I have the privilege to enjoy today.
Awesome. So yeah, 10 years. It's totally amazing to me. And now we're at, as of the end of this week, we'll be at 60 summits, youth climate summits, inspired by that very first one here in 2009 in 30 communities around the globe. So pretty crazy. And now you guys are all a part of that network of young people that care about climate change, that care about their future, that want to create solutions, and that want to be part of the solution as as we move forward. So over the next couple of days, we're really going to focus on those solutions. You're going to hear about the climate science and the impacts here in the Adirondacks and across New York State, but you're also going to really be focused on those solutions, and you'll hear more about that as we go forward. Our theme this year is around climate resilience, and has anybody ever heard that term before? Anybody? I got a couple hands in the room. Any shout outs of like what is climate resilience? Just shout it out. Anybody? Come on. Awesome, thank you. Anything to add to that? So that ability to work through and like understand climate impacts, but then also to bounce back after hazardous events that might happen in communities. And so, so thinking about that, like we know that climate change is happening. We know that it's here and it's happening now. This image, which is from Superstorm Sandy down in New York City. I know some of our team from Brooklyn knows a lot about that because their communities were impacted by it. So we know that these hazards are happening, but how communities can plan and think about climate change moving forward so that when these events happen, and they will happen again, they can be better prepared. So it's not just about mitigating those hazards happening, but it's also about bouncing forward and thinking about how we can build more sustainable cities, more sustainable communities in the face of climate change and the impacts that it will cause. So it's going to help us. The next couple of days, you're going to hear the term resilience a lot. There's a lot of sessions where that theme is really woven in. Does anybody recognize this photo? Those teams from, where's Keene Valley? I know you're here somewhere. Yeah, so this is Hurricane Irene. So that happened, what year was that, 2011? that Hurricane Irene hit, and so those impacts will happen and look different in different places, and again, we're going to talk more about that. But the solutions are at hand, and as we move through the next couple days, you're going to learn about the solutions: energy, renewables, all around food, working with decision makers. So there's a lot of different ways that the work that we're doing right now will help to foster resilience moving forward. And I think really one of the most important things to think about is the resilience in yourself. Like, how can we as, not just you individually take action, but how we together can, and how we can build a more resilient team here at the Wild Center, but also across the state and around the globe. So we're prepared to take on these challenges, to talk with our leaders, to connect with new friends, and be more resilient ourselves as we take on this big challenge. So I want to do a shout out right now to 2 youth climate summits that are happening today in Columbus Zoo in Ohio, and then also in sorry, where is it? Mass Audubon. Sorry, there's like so many. In Acadia. So let's do a little shout out to them. Hey guys. Woo! And I have some thank yous, and I know I gotta wrap up here. So this is all the schools that are here today, and actually we may have a couple others that aren't on this list. I think Clarkson might show up at some point. So I want you to take a look around the room. Take a look. And I want you to high five someone near you that you don't know. So turn around, look forward, look back, high five. Give out that high five. How about, I know you guys. High five. All right, bring it back, bring it back, bring it back. Bring it back. Bring it back. Bring it back. Oh, good. I already got you connecting. That's my goal. So maybe you can like hang out with your new climate buddy, meet them later, take a tour around the museum, visit the otters at lunchtime. But please make sure to step out of your comfort zone. And I know it can be hard. It's like a little intimidating to got all these people here. But really try to see how many different schools you can connect with, meet new friends, and that's the way we're gonna solve this, is by staying connected and moving forward. We also definitely could not do this without our sponsors. So let's do a huge shout out to them. Woo! So the NOAA, you guys have heard of the weather, right? Well, NOAA helps to bring us the weather. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and we actually have, is she here? Carrie, I'm going to call you out. Where's Carrie? Oh, she's over there. You can stop by and see her. She's here from NOAA. She's checking out our project to see if we're doing okay. Are we doing okay so far, Carrie? Yeah. Okay, awesome. So please let Carrie know how this project has impacted you and the work here at the summit. That would be awesome. We got the EPA, NYSERDA. They'll be here tomorrow. The John Ben Snow Foundation and Memorial Trust, Casella Waste Management, Johnson Family Foundation, the Adirondack Green Circle, Lake Placid Education Foundation, at the Adirondack Foundation, Margaret Huskins, Crown Plaza Resort, and the Adirondack Garden Club. Let's give them another round of applause. We really couldn't function without the support of all our sponsors, our members, our board of directors. That's also, some of them are here today, so I'm really grateful for that. I want to do a huge shout out to the team, the Summiteers. You guys stand up. All you Summiteers have been working from 4 different school districts. Woo! From 4 different school districts. They've been meeting every Sunday night for 2.5 hours for the last 14 weeks. So we're really grateful for their time that they put into this. Okay, and now I'm going to turn it back over to Tucker. Thank you very much. Have a great 2 days, and I look forward to meeting all of you. So please come up and say hi and introduce yourself, and we're going to do this. We got it, you guys. We got it.
All right, now it's time to talk about food. One of the biggest contributors to climate change is food. Did you know that the average American meal travels 1,500 miles in vehicles powered by fossil fuels? We don't want to be a part of that. So for this event, we're keeping emissions low by only sourcing local food. While we're on the topic of food, anyone who is vegan, vegetarian, gluten intolerant, lactose intolerant, anyone who has food allergies, or is on any sort of restricted diet, know that we have plenty of options for you. And with that said, anyone on a restricted diet gets a free pass to the front of the line during meal times. At the front of the line, there will be detailed information for those with severe allergies. Now that you know where our food comes from, please feel free to eat throughout the museum. Eat lunch with the fish, nibble on a snack next to the otters. All we ask is that you keep the farm fresh food all to yourself. Also, as summiteers, we should be striving to be part of the Clean Plate Club. So, take as much food as you want, but eat all the food you take.
On another note, let's talk about food waste. If you aren't in the Clean Play Club, make sure to get rid of your food waste correctly by using the composting stations by the cafe. We'd like to give a big shout out to North Country School for agreeing to take our food waste and congratulate them on their innovative and amazing composting system. If you want to learn more or have any questions about how to deal with your own food waste, you can ask the students and staff from North Country School who will be helping out by the composting stations during meal times. Now that we've talked about reducing food waste, I also want to highlight how we like to promote reusable materials here at the Adirondack Youth Climate Summit. Each of you got a lovely mason jar for all your beverage needs while at the summit. We ask that you take the rinse station seriously, and remember, you get one and only one mug. It is your responsibility to take care of your mug, and if you lose it, you will not get another one. So please make sure to put your names on both the lid and the mug, please. There are fun interactives all throughout the museum for your team to enjoy. Check out the green photo booth, our Resiliency art display, and don't forget to sign your name on the parachute art installation. You'll hear more about our student-created Parachutes for the Planet project tomorrow. And now I present you Cedar from the social media crew to talk about how you all can interact with each other during the summit through social media.
All right, hi guys, I'm Cedar. I'm from Saranac Lake High School. I've been on the social media planning team up to this event. On this slide, you can find all our social media profiles, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and the hashtags we're using. If you guys want to take your phone out right now to take a picture of that so you can add us later if you don't already have us, I'll give you time for that. And the most used hashtag this year is hashtag AYCS 2018, so don't forget to use that on all your posts. Here's our Snapchat if you want to keep your phones out so you can scan our snap code. I'll give you a few seconds for that. Throughout the day, our social media team is going to be taking over the Snapchat and posting stories. And also, once you add us, you can add to and just look at our group story that we've created. Okay. I go back? That's okay. You're good. So we also have a geo filter we've created for this event, shown here. Once you take your Snapchat, just swipe on over, and there it is. Don't forget to post it on your story to make everyone that's not here jealous. This is our system for sharing photos. Out in the lobby, you'll notice a few TVs. And on the TVs, all your posts with hashtag AYCS 2018 on Instagram and Twitter will be shown up there so you can see what everyone else is posting and see your own posts. The Hunt for Resiliency is our scavenger hunt this year. Each year, teachers should have a scavenger hunt sheet in their folder. There are 5 clues on the sheet that will lead you to a different place in the museum. Once you get to that place, there will be a question there, and once you answer it on the sheet, you're good. Once you're all done, turn it into the front desk to win a prize. And don't forget to take a picture of your team and post it with hashtag AYCS 2018. Throughout the day, the social media team is going to be picking some of their favorite posts with the hashtag AYCS 2018, and those people at the end of the day will be called out and they will win a prize. So have fun and don't forget to post with hashtag AYCS 2018.
I know we're all super excited to hear from our first speaker, but super quickly, I'm going to walk everyone through our schedule. So please take a moment to look at your one-page printed agenda per team. You can also access it on your smartphones by typing that link into your browser. Thank you for helping us cut down on paper usage during the summit, and if you prefer another printed copy of the agenda, you can find them at the admissions desk. So the areas in dark blue mean that everyone will be gathering in this theater for a presentation. The areas in orange mean food, so you should all head to the Great Hall for some tasty meals. The areas in light blue and white mean workshop sessions, so workshop sessions that are each held in different locations. We have a great selection of workshops to attend. When you're choosing workshops as a team, plan to have team members at different workshops. That way, team members can share with each other what they've learned at their own workshops, and teams can benefit from the knowledge of all of the summit workshops. You might also be wondering about the Summit Incubator Lunch. This is specifically for people who are interested in starting their own youth climate summits.
Climate summits everywhere.
Please be on time for all your events and make sure to be respectful to all of your presenters and staff members. And also, give your full attention to our amazing presenters. If you have any questions about the schedule or anything about the summit in general, feel free to ask anyone wearing this blue summit shirt like mine, and we'd be more than happy to help you. Without further ado, here's my fellow summit crew member, Erica, to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Curt Stager.
When I found out Dr. Curt Stager was presenting, I was so excited. He always gives such great presentations. Curt Stager is a professor of natural sciences at Paul Smith College, and in 2013, he was named the New York State Professor of the Year by the Carnegie Foundation. Curt has done a lot with climate change, dealing with sediment cores from lakes in Africa and North America to publishing his book called Deep Future in 2011, which has been referred to as a definitive work on global warming. Please join me in giving Dr. Curt Stager a warm welcome.
So thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. And thanks to everybody that's involved in this Youth Climate Summit movement. It's the most inspiring thing I know of on the whole planet. And people my age and older really need to know about this. So make sure you talk to old folks after this as well as people your age. We really need the positive uplifting. So what I'd like to do today is make sure we're all on message with some of the basic science about climate change, some of which you may have heard before, some of which you may have not. But it's good to just make sure we're up to date on the facts. And I picked and chose a few of them. But underneath that is another theme, and that's how important you are, this younger generation. Hope to get across to you that how uniquely important you are at this time in Earth history, that you've actually become demonstrably a force of nature. And I want to show you how powerful you are as well. So important to help you become self-aware, to empower you in the things you'll be doing in the next 2 days and going forward. So just to sum up the whole message, basically all you got to do is be able to count to 3. Climate change, it's real, it's us, and it's here. Right? Got that? So in case you were wondering, anyhow, I'm just going to go step by step through this, okay? It's definitely real. You may have heard that there's a debate about climate change out there and what's causing it and is it real. Yeah, there may well be, but it's not in the scientific community. Survey after survey shows about 97% of all serious climate scientists agree that it's real, it's us, and it's here. You may have heard otherwise, but it's not going to come from scientists. So there are multiple lines of evidence. We'll run through some of that. Here's a graph of about a half a century of measurements of the atmosphere from Hawaii, showing that the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is increasing. And this is backed up by stations all over the world now. It's not just from that one. So we know the carbon dioxide is increasing. We know that it's mostly coming from burning of fossil fuels by industry and transportation. So burning coal in coal-fired electric power plants, and from the vehicles that transport stuff around. We were just heard about how important food that travels a lot increases fossil fuel consumption by being transported by gas guzzling machines. So the reason that is, of course, related to climate is because carbon dioxide is called a greenhouse gas. So that's a gas that basically lets sunlight penetrate the atmosphere, warm the surface of the Earth, and then that heat from the warmed surface of the Earth is trapped by the greenhouse gas, mainly carbon dioxide. So it's compared to what happens inside a greenhouse, but there's a better analogy to use that's maybe easier to understand and more scientifically accurate, actually. It's more like a blanket. A greenhouse gas traps the heat that's coming from beneath it and holds it inside that, and the more blankets or the thicker blankets you put on, the warmer you're going to get. So maybe we can call it the blanket effect or something like that instead of the greenhouse effect. But both of those would work. We also think it's important to connect you to this issue by asking what may seem like a simple question is, where does this carbon dioxide go after we release it into the atmosphere, which looks like this endless blue thing up there. But of course, when you view it from an entire planet, it's really a very thin blue skin. You can see that little glow on the edge of the planet there where that's all going to smear out into. We can actually trace where this goes using chemical methods and watch the molecules going into the atmosphere, so that about 1 in 8 of the carbon atoms now in the air right here, well, in this room or outside the Wild Center, came from a smokestack or a tailpipe not too long ago. So no matter where you go on the planet, you're going to find something like that, about 1 in 8 of the carbons in the carbon dioxide in the air. But what's maybe more important than that on a personal level is, where does that go? And one of the first places a lot of this goes is into plants. If you maybe remember from your biology classes that plants inhale carbon dioxide, and that's where they get the atoms of carbon to build their bodies out of. And then the next step, of course, is meaning that 1 in 8 of the carbon atoms in all the plants of the world came from a smokestack or a tailpipe, because they're connected to the polluted atmosphere that we're living in. And of course, the next step is, well, if you're making food from those plants, 1 in 8 of the carbon atoms in your food, whether it's a pizza or whatever it is ultimately connected to the food chains of the Earth. Our food contains about 1 in 8 carbon atoms from a smokestack or a tailpipe, which means, of course, that 1 in 8 of the carbon atoms in your body is also from that, because you get your carbon from your food, which gets it from the atmosphere. So in other words, we're not only a source of air pollution, we are air pollution. You are people of the fumes. You may not have realized that. And your generation is the most connected to that of any in history. You have more of this in your body than anybody else before you. So kind of a shocking fact to realize that this has a personal effect on you as well. So one of the other big places the carbon goes is into the ocean. It dissolves in there just like oxygen does, which is what keeps the fish alive. And unfortunately, although it takes it out of the atmosphere and reduces the climate impact, it changes the chemistry of the ocean and makes it more acidic, which is very harmful for anything that makes a shell out of limestone, like clams and scallops and oysters, or the shrimp and lobsters, or even coral reefs are in increasing danger. So it's not just a climate issue, but also the ecology of the oceans are under threat as well. So that's a little quick primer on, is it real or not, and how does the science work. Next thing is, how do we know it's us? And that's where some of this debate outside of the climate community comes from. And you may have heard of arguments, or you may, as you spread the word out here, that, it's, how do you know it's not just the weather going up and down? If climate always changes, right? And it's one day to the next. This is not about weather. This is about climate, and there's a big difference between those. So what you might want to explain to somebody if they do tell you that, like, how do you know it's not just weather and stuff? You say, well, this is climate, and climate is not just the rain falling on your head right here and now. It's a long-term pattern over long time periods and large areas that you average together, and it's a general direction of change in spite of the ups and downs. Just like a road, if you came up here to the Adirondacks from far away, driving up into the mountains, the ups and downs on the road, you could say, would be like the ups and downs of weather temperatures, but it's the overall uphill ride into the mountains that would be the climate. And that's what we're talking about. And we know that that's not just something called natural cycles, which sometimes people will tell you. We don't believe that climate change is due to us. It's just the natural cycles of the earth bouncing up and down. People in my field where we study ice cores, sediment cores, tree rings, and look back thousands of years into the past of climate, we know what the natural cycles are, and the things going on today are not part of the natural cycles. I put a picture here from a lake in the Arctic where some colleagues in Canada have been studying the records that go back thousands of years in the lake sediment layers. And the melting of the ice in summer on these lakes has not happened for thousands of years. This is a recent thing due to the warming of the earth, not due to a natural bouncing back and forth process. So the natural cycle thing doesn't hold water. Another way to get at it is just some simple bookkeeping about what can change the climate of the entire earth. One thing would be the sun, because it's huge and we get most of our heat from it. Another would be volcanoes, because they can release carbon dioxide. And another one is our fossil fuels. We've been monitoring all three of those. We've been looking at the sun. It hasn't been doing anything unusual in recent decades to explain the warming, so we can eliminate that. Same thing with the world's volcanoes. They haven't been doing anything unusual in recent decades, basically your lifetime. We can eliminate that, and that leaves the fossil fuels by process of elimination also, in addition to the other evidence I was giving you. So to add it all up, to put it into comparison, we emit 100 times more heat-trapping carbon dioxide than all the world's volcanoes combined. Now that's a force of nature, if anything is. So to maybe give you a sense of the magnitude of the changes we're setting in motion right now during our lifetime, some of the known natural cycles can actually be used to predict the far future of climate change. And those natural cycles would produce things like ice ages in the future. The next one is due about 50,000 years from now. It turns out when you add the impacts of the heat-trapping carbon that we're releasing now in our lifetimes, if you add that to the picture of the natural cycles, there will be enough of our carbon dioxide left 50,000 years from now in the atmosphere to raise the temperature of the earth enough to cancel that next ice age. We've already done that. We are so powerful, we're more powerful than the natural cycles that make ice ages. And this will be one of our legacies already. So pretty powerful stuff. So there's a term that goes with that a lot of scientists are using to describe the world that you are now living in and helping to create. It's an age of Earth history called an epoch, and the technical term for it is the Anthropocene, which translates as the age of humans. And if you look at the effects we're having on the entire planet, which are some of them listed here, extinctions, invasive species, pollution and trash from pole to pole, or the topic of this session, which would be the chemistry of the atmosphere and climate, we are a force of nature. We even change what the Earth looks like from space. In the upper left there, the Earth now glows in the dark on the shadowy side because of the electricity we produce from burning fossil fuels. So that can be a little bit depressing. You say, look at all the changes we're doing to the Earth. It's important to not stop there, though. Once you realize that, which is important to do, the next thing is to say, we did that unintentionally. We didn't know what we were doing, except now we do. So this should be actually taking the next step, which is empowerment. Look what we did without meaning to. Think of what you can do with purpose and knowledge and good ethics, which is what you are all about. It's incredible. You are a force of nature. So this can be pretty sobering stuff, and I like to sort of watch people's faces in the audience, and I noticed you, sir, you seem to be kind of thoughtful about some of this stuff. And do you have any words you want to like?
Yeah.
Introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name's Larry. Curt, we've nearly beaten this one to death, though, haven't we? CO2 levels the highest in Earth's history. The automobile put us all in the driver's seat, and none of us will stop until it's too late and our tires screech. Scientists agree, so any doubt might be the ominous cloud of the apocalypse might finally topple this delicate, perfectly placed planet. See, we've almost beaten this one to death, haven't we? What we're talking about is a heat-trapping blanket, burning stuff that's ancient. Our policies are just as outdated. How can you call yourself a patriot amid this planetary waste? It didn't dawn on you the enemy got you to the last place you went? You see, there's regular carbon dioxide and rampant carbon dioxide. One is what drives life. The other pours out when we drive. Every graph shows an upward arrow. Shellfish and coral in peril. See, we live in a world where the highways are wide, but our foresight is still so narrow. Where, though? Where do young people today go to get the hottest trends? Vogue? Cosmopolitan? That's old-fashioned. I am modern man. Year after year of record highs. Hot damn! Forget your spray-on tan and Ray-Bans. You can't be cool in the hottest year ever. You want to play slick, whatever? Go swim in the Gulf of Mexico. Yo, all around the world, it's high, high, high. And I find it crazy that even with increased sun, politicians find a way to be shady. Drop some science on them, Curt.
Thank you so much for that. So let's move on to the third thing here. It's how do we know it's here? Well, there are lots and lots of examples you can give from around the world. I picked a few from just here in New York State. We have weather records here from a Tupper Lake that go back a century. And basically, since about the 1970s, which is when the human impacts on the climate really started picking up around the world, we've also had a major warming of several degrees Fahrenheit since then, right here in Tupper Lake. So it is definitely here in the Adirondacks since about the 1970s, and that fits the global picture. It's not just a distant thing. We can see that the ice cover on our lakes here in the North Country is shrinking over time. The lakes are freezing later and they're melting earlier. This is a complicated graph from Lake Champlain showing the dates of freeze up for the last 200 years. And I'm going to take this little thing right here. You can see along the bottom there, the 1800s up to the present day. There's a bouncy blue line there, and that represents the freeze up dates. And what you mainly need to notice there is you see how we start running out of blue lines at the far right side in the recent times? That's because it hasn't been freezing up, so they can't write the date down. Right? The whole graph is decomposing before our eyes. So we put little stars, little black stars for every winter when Lake Champlain didn't freeze over completely. And you see how they're all getting more and more common since the 1800s, especially the last half century. That matches the temperature. It's been getting warmer, so winter is ending earlier. That's right here where we live. A lot of people keep nature diaries. At Paul Smith's, we've been watching when the bees emerge, the native bees emerge in the spring, when the maple buds burst, when the spotted salamanders migrate in the spring, things like that. And we write down the dates, which is something you all could do at your schools as well. It's a great thing, science project, but also long-term monitoring. We go back to the 1990s, and we find out that all of those are happening a week or two earlier than they used to when we started. So it's affecting the animals and plants here, as well as the lakes and the thermometers. When we have storms, big rainstorms, on average, the big ones are becoming more common. So here's a picture from 2011 when Irene basically destroyed the backyards and homes of some people in Keene right there. That used to be backyards when the river jumped its banks. So we're definitely seeing more powerful rainstorms, just like we're seeing globally as well. So basically the global picture is definitely happening here in the Adirondacks in much the same way, and we have data to prove it. Also in other parts of New York State along the coast, we're feeling the effects of sea level rise, about 1 inch per decade, which is affecting the whole world. 1 inch isn't gonna necessarily flood that beach there. You run off to get an ice cream and you come back and your towel's gone because it was inundated or something. It's not that fast, but it is important. That tiny amount makes a big difference when you get a hurricane and the storm surge and the waves like happened with Superstorm Sandy along our coast. Once the sea level is higher, those waves go farther inland and do much more damage. So we are definitely seeing all of this stuff right here where we live. So this can be overwhelming, especially for older folks. What have we done to the world? And it's good to feel a little responsibility, but not to the point of curling up in a ball. What this event is all about is not curling up in a ball at a time when we need to take action. And that's what you are all about as a force of nature, and why what you're doing here is so vitally, vitally important when a lot of other people are giving up in despair. So do you have any thoughts on that, Larry? You want to pile on to that?
Yeah, my own mic.
Thank
I
you.
carry one around. When I was a kid, I built those killer snow forts. So far, my kid has built no forts. Because winter in the boreal north, they're growing short. Leaves on your ski trail, ticks in February, and so forth. Lakes don't freeze over, so we're skating on that thin ice. Experimenting with pollution of men and mice, changing the course of nature with no end in sight. On Earth, man is kind of like a blind slalom racer in business clothes, bombing between the poles, landing face first in mashed potatoes. Disgraceful. All right, check it out. Let's try something. When I say decreased snowpack, I want you all to say, so whack. Decreased snowpack. So whack. I said decreased snowpack. So whack. I remember way back. In 12th grade, I learned about climate change. It seems so very foreign and strange. I mean, a few degrees, what's that gonna do to me? Decreased snowpack. I've walked on a beach. I've walked on a glacier. I didn't make the connection. Epic misdirection. Looking towards the next election like the next severe storm. There's been a few 100-year floods since I was born. That's the new norm. And now I'm always stumped at the gas pump because I'm forced to grapple with this self-scorn.
All right, so that was the science. Some of the greatest nuggets I hope you'll take to heart and take home and spread around when you leave here. Your biggest impacts are going to be after this event here when you go and start talking to people, so it's important to have your facts straight and be well informed. But I think one of the other messages of this presentation is equally important, and that's to realize that you are literally a force of nature in this time of Earth history, which we're calling the age of humans. You're more numerous, your technology is more powerful, and your interconnections are more diverse and deep than has ever happened in human history. And it's all around the planet. And you're really the first generation that grew up into this as a normal and feel comfortable with this stuff. So you are literally a force of nature. Think of what you can do as a force for good as well in this. So you might say, how can I really make a difference? I'm this small person in a big world, and just changing light bulbs or something, does that really make a difference? Well, the things that you do individually may not change the entire planet right away, but it's important to remember that they change you, and you are a force of nature. It's almost like a ritual that reminds you of our place and time in the world and in history. By doing these small things, and other people watch you, you have a sphere of influence. So when you are aware of these things, just the simple act of talking about it, or changing the light bulb, or having whatever you choose to do, changes you, and it influences the people around you. And that's very important to realize at this time when we have become literally a force of nature in the age of humans. So I'm going to give you two really good go-to places for information if you'd like to get more of this, to keep yourself well informed and up to date. Climate Central is a very good, reliable science source for what climate change is, how it works, and what its effects are around the world and what are current events. If you like playing with computer models, there's one called Climate Wizard which is easy to use, and you can zero in on your home state or your home region, find out what temperature and precipitation have been doing and what the future may hold, depending on how many fossil fuels we emit. So I recommend Climate Central and Climate Wizard as information sources for you. So above all, it's important to take that really good information, learn what is true so you're better at doing what is right, and support the good science, which is maybe an act of defiance sometimes nowadays, it seems like, with your votes, your money, your words, your lifestyle, and interacting with other people in a positive way, including with these youth climate summits, which again, I repeat, I think is the most amazing thing happening on the entire planet right now. Gives me a lot of hope. And I suppose it does for you, Larry, too, if you want to give us some closing thoughts.
One more. So unless someone like you, you and you and you and you and you and you, cares a whole awful lot about all these issues that Curt just discussed, yeah, the whole awful lot. The world is warming. We're causing it. Weather is getting intense. And scientists agree. And we can do something about these more extreme storms, ocean acidification, glacial obliteration, the rising seas, the dirty oil, and the new norms of no snow and no ice and people being displaced. Unless you care, not a thing's going to get better any place. So think resilience, a world for your children's children. So when children lead the way, it's called brilliance. Can we prevent billions of problems? When scientific models say the illest is yet to follow, I think of a motto, it's called resilience. And I can see it in this room right now. They call it a summit because we're high up, able to look down, that higher learning has a fire burning. Inside, the energy is churning, tide is turning. This program has been reaching youth for 10 years and running. And some of those kids are now 20-somethings. Climate literate, empowered leaders spreading the good word, so who's next? Step up to this mic and let your voice be heard.